Wagon Wednesday, y'all. Here we go. Miss Monday, Wagon Wednesday. We're back on the two-door Malibu Wagon, Medusa. What are we going to do today? My helper's having a fit behind the camera here, guys and gals. Forgive her. Anyhow, as you can see, we've been busy. I mean, blocking and blocking and blocking and more blocking. But guess what? We're at a point now, we got to stop pretending we don't need to fix this door jam. So, what we got going on here? Yeah, it opens. So we got where we cut the original door out. We got our made door opening, just called that because this was a door. So now we made it a quarter panel, a door panel. So, what we need to do today, I need to get my striker lined up with the door so it actually latches. So I'll be able to take this thing down the road. But really, what I need it for is so I can finish my body work. So as you can see, we went to the extremes on this gal. If you remember, we cut the whole top of this off and recreated this whole top piece. Okay? So as you can see, my door, without the latch in it, it wants to droop down a little bit. So we need to get the latch in there, striker, and get all that mocked up. We'll click you back on when we're ready. Alright guys and gals, now we're in here. Okay, let me get this adjusted so you can see. What this is that you're looking at, this void here, is where our B-pillar used to be located. Okay, so what we ended up doing, we removed it from here. I know, that's insane. This is the actual space of the opening for a Malibu wagon. It's not that big. I'm a pretty big guy. Hence the issue, hence the solution, making this a two-door. So what we're going to do today, we're going to recreate this piece so we have our opening. We're going to tie our B-pillar back into our substructure of our car so that that's all done. We're going to cut out our striker here because this, for whatever reason, is about an inch lower, and it's probably from me cutting it out and moving it to where it is in the body. It just made this an inch lower. Not that big a deal, still something we need to address. What this is in here is a caged nut, okay? And what I mean by that, there's a bolt that goes in here basically. Your door striker is your bolt. So there's a nut that's in a box, okay? So it's tack welded, and as you can see, there's a couple little spots here where it's tack welded on the jamb. We're gonna cut that piece off completely, remove it, relocate it to where it works, and then fill our gaps in. Along with this here, don't need this. This is a part of the four-door wagon. Actually see if you guys and gals can see what I'm talking about. That might help. So, this hole we're going to eliminate. These voids we need to eliminate. We're just going to clean this up. So when this is open and everything just looks smooth. So let's get our tools gathered up here. We'll click you back on when we get going. Alright guys and gals, here we go. So what we're going to do here, we're going to take our volcano disc. Remember guys and gals, safety first. As you can see, these things do a pretty good job, and it's not like a flat disc, so you don't have to worry about it removing a bunch of material. I know sometimes you get to grinding on edges and it'll just thin them out to where they're paper thin. This will not do that. This will just grind the paint and the surface and condition it. So, what we're going to do here, okay, for my sake, I'm going to make this piece first. That way I know all this is tied back together, so I'll have peace of mind to that. And then we'll start attacking this actual B-pillar. So we'll click it back on when we're there. Alright, so we got our measurements measured out there. Know about what size piece we're going to need. Let's go ahead and get this gal cut up. 18 gauge sheet metal. Switch over here to my flapper disc. Clean up those burrs. Now I like these flat discs. They seem to work a lot better for me than, say, like just a hard grinding stone. They definitely stay cooler as far as that goes. Seem to last, a decent amount of time. Get this bent up over to the card. All right, guys and gals, here we are, back with the wagon. So what we're gonna do here, and as you'll notice, I cut this oversized, and I did that for a couple reasons. When I cut this out, we did this in a haste, okay? And what I mean by that is we weren't being too particular about having exactly straight lines. So I like building these oversized. That way I can come back in here and cut this and have an exact fit for when I go to weld it back in. Then you have a seamless transition. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my measurements here. I'm going to transfer it to my flat stock steel, 18 gauge here, and we're going to make this piece to fill this back in. So I'll go over here to my brake, get this bent up, click it back on when we're done. All right, guys and gals, let's see how we got made out here. So what I plan on doing, I got that marked out. So that'll drop in. I want to be able to do some rosette welds here to hold that back piece, but this front piece, I want to reserve that to be able to butt weld it, okay? And the reason I want to do that is because I don't want any lapped metal on this rocker. Well, I'll come back in through here when we're done, and there's, I forget what it's called at the moment, but they actually have a spray can that has a nozzle with a long hose on it that you can feed in your rockers and treat them. So you don't ever have to worry about them rusting out from the inside out. And totally honest with you guys and gals, I doubt this car will ever see the wet weather. There you go. The water weather. Yeah, that stuff. So we got that fitted up in there. We're going to ground back. We're going to mark our bottom here. We're going to take our sweet time welding that baby back in. So we'll click you back on when we're there. All right, guys and gals, there you go. Now you can see, we got that fitted up. A little bit of trimming, a little bit of marking, a little bit of grindy. She fits up just fine. So now what we're going to do, we're going to get our welder, and we are going to spot weld this baby in until it's one complete piece. Get our welder set up here. I tend to use core flux wire, gasless wire. Why do I do that? Because I'm a weirdo, and I work in my shop in all kinds of weird hours. Sometimes I just don't have access to gas. And with sheet metal work, I found that it is softer when you weld, so it's easier to work. Guys and gals, what I'm going to do here, when I originally cut the B pillar out, I drilled all the spot welds out. Now the reason I did that is because I knew once I moved it back in the wagon that the rocker was still going to be there for me to reattach it to. So what am I doing with the drill bit? I'm cleaning out the painted area behind my spot weld. That way I get good penetration and good adhesion. A lot of these cars during the manufacturing process, it's just layers upon layers that are spot welded together to give the car their structure. So what we're doing is we're just doing the same thing the factory would have done as it came down the line, you know, and we're just going to reattach it here to the existing rocker. That way we know for a fact that our door jamb opening and our B-pillar is securely attached. Alright guys and gals, we'll go around here, get this all welded in. As you noticed, I just spot welded it. I don't want to soak this with a lot of heat. I don't want to work this up real bad. So we're going to take our time, spot weld it in, grind it smooth, carry on with our next step. We'll click you back on when we're there. Alright guys and gals, we got that part all welded in, all smoothed out, looking good. So now it's back to one solid piece. Now we're going to go over here to our door. We're going to try to set this up so you guys and gals can see as well. So give me a second here. We'll get you turned around, show you what we're dealing with. Alright guys and gals, so what I got here, I got the door striker. And all that does is just screws into this captured bolt. It's supposed to. There we go. Into the door. So I'll show you what we're dealing with here. Here we have our jaws for a door latch. Okay, and as you can see, maybe you can or maybe you can't. I don't think we're gonna have the adjustability to get this to latch, but let's try it. Let me gather some tools. We'll hook this up, see what's happening. All right, guys and gals, I've got some tools here. See if we can't figure this out. So what I want to see here is, will my door latch match up? I'm going to tell you what. See how it's pulling the door down? Can you guys and gals see that? Well, I can. So what the dilemma here is, all right, let me loosen this up just to make certain. Yeah, that's all the way up. And being that that's all the way up, as high as I can get it in that door jamb, and it's pushing my door down, I mean, it's obvious. It tells me it needs to go up. Let's look at it just to make sure. Yep. Now, from what I'm seeing here, guys and gals, I'm working with like 3/4 of an inch. I know a lot of people be tempted just to hammer this thing up till it catches. Don't do that to yourself. We spent all this time modifying this car, making it custom. We don't want to just hammer this, okay? So what we're going to do, I probably said it earlier, but we're going to cut that out as one assembly, move it up, and reattach it. That way we have fluid door operation, closing and opening. So we'll get set up here, and we'll click you back on. All right, guys and gals, here we go. So what we've come up with here is we've realized that this striker here needs to move up 1 inch, okay? So what I'm thinking, in my math in here, let's see if I do this right. If I need this to move up 1 inch, okay, I'm going to measure down 1 inch, make my mark. I'm going to measure up 2 inches, make me a mark. So what that's going to allow me to do, hopefully, is to simply flip this whole thing over, reinsert it, and weld that baby back in. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my time. I'm going to mark this out. I'm going to make sure that I make this as seamless as possible. Our inch. I'm going approximately from the center. Whoop. Approximately from the center. Whoop. There we go. So now I'll square that up. Measure my distance here. I obviously want to keep it outside this plate, because that's going to give me the most chance to get that hole captured system there. Because as you can see here, there's a couple little spot welds. So I know if I cut above that, I'll be fine. If I cut below that, I'll be fine. So we'll get this marked out, cut up, flipped over, and reattached. We'll click you back on when we're there. All right, guys and gals, here we go. We got to do some math here. So what you want to pay attention to when you're doing stuff like this is your distances, okay? This is where you're going to want to measure 2-3 times to make sure before you cut anything. So the biggest thing I'm going to want to pay attention to, what I'm trying to accomplish here is I'm trying to cut this out, trying to keep this square intact, okay? I don't want to have to remake this if I don't have to. So the simplest thing I can come up with is I'm going to take my measurements from the outside here to the inside of this opening. I'm going to transfer that the same distance over here. And the reason I'm going to do that is because when I flip this, I need this to be able to line up within the same proximity that it's at right now. So what I come to find out with mocking this up and trying to shut the door and everything is this is an inch. 1 inch difference. Okay? So this here, where this striker is here, I need to raise this up 1 inch. Okay? So what I'm going to end up doing here is I'm going to take myself some measurements here. And I'm going to take my time so that when I put all my marks on here and cut this out, the only thing I should have to do, hopefully, is just flip this piece over and re-weld it in place. So we're going to go ahead and get this measured out, mark it off, and see what we can come up with. So this mark here represents this distance here. This mark here is the 1 inch that we're going to cut below this piece. This mark up here is the 2 inches that we're going to cut above this piece. Now, in theory, we mark this out square, cut this out. I should literally be able to take that piece out, flip it over, reinsert it, zippity zip zip with some liquid metal, and we'll be in business. We'll have a functioning, closing, latching, 2-door Malibu wagon. Let's get this marked out. We'll get it cut. We'll click you back on. All right, guys and gals, there you can kind of see. So what I ended up doing was measuring this out, transferring my marks, making this mark so that I can cut this piece out and hopefully flip it over and reattach it. Now, like I said, 2 points you want to pay attention to. The distance from left to right and the distance that you need to move the actual opening, okay? Now, this has quite a bit of forgiveness in it. I don't want to lose that, okay? So that's why I went about it this way. Yeah, I could have went in here and just drilled an exact hole where I thought I wanted it, but you guys and gals that have been around the business know. After a while, these cars settle. You get to driving them and everything else. You don't want to lose your adjustability here in your door. You might have to come back in here and readjust this once the car and everything gets settled in. So don't limit yourself by just wailing a weld in there and holding that thing in place. Take the time, do the job to where you have adjustability for yourself down the road. You just don't know. So we're going to get this cut out, cleaned up, flipped around, stuck back in. Now, down here at this point, you'll notice this is gone here, okay? But what will happen is I'll be able to take this piece off because I'll need to get a provision down here so this fits in, and then I'll just be able to replace that on this corner again, all right? Now, what I could do while I'm at it here is I could just mark this corner out to where that piece there is left behind, and we might just go ahead and do that. So we're going to use our little micrometer, and we're going to use this as a measurement transfer tool because we got it. So now, when you do this, you'll have to think of everything as a mirror, okay? So what you have down here is going to be up here. So you need to make them marks transfer over to where you need them. So there's one mark there, okay? And then what we'll do is we'll come to this long side and do the same thing. Use our micrometer, go to our corner, stretch it to our next point. Boop. Put that in there. Clamp that thing down. Now, like I said, remember, because you're going from a mirrored image, a reversed mirrored image. How about that? That's fanciness. Then we'll just connect our two lines. And essentially, that'll be our piece. So fingers crossed, once we cut this out, if we do this right, we shouldn't have to make any patches. Let's see how we do. We'll cut this out, click it back on. Alright guys and gals, there we go. Got that guy cut out around there. Let's see what we're working with here. It's like something still got a hold of it in the back. So I believe that's one of our spot welds. So what do we got here? We got ourselves a little aerosol. Not the spray can, aerosol. I know it sounds like what comes in the spray can, but you know what I'm saying. Body saw, how about that? Let's see if we can peek back here and see what's going on. All right. Ah, it's our cage. Let's see if we can get that worked off. All right, there you go. Check that out. So that's what actually holds your stopper. That's a backing plate. So that's what your adjustability comes from. So we want to be real mindful not to lose that guy. That plate just sat in there. So that was like that. Or no, I'm sorry. Lying to you. That was like that. Look, we did such a good job, I confused myself. Now we'll be able to grind that. Just barely. Fit that guy back in there. Get that all welded back up. And that'll give us our 1-inch rise. Alright, guys and gals. We'll get that cleaned up, put in there, stitched back together. We'll click you back on when we're there. Alright guys and gals, there you can see, we got her flipped around. We're ready to tack this baby in place. So what you want to pay attention to here is your spacing. Okay, you don't want any super big gaps, and you don't want any real tight pinch points. But the biggest thing you want to pay attention to is keeping this flush. Alright guys and gals, there you can see we got that thing mopped up in place, tacked in. So we're going to go around here, weld this up, small tacks. We're going to pay real close attention to how it fits up here. Now you can really see what we accomplished. So if you remember, this little short piece was on the bottom. And then we made a longer measurement on top. So essentially what we've accomplished here is moving our door striker up 1 whole inch while still maintaining our range of adjustability. So we're going to go ahead, get this welded in. We're going to take our time here, tack it, move on, tack it, move on. We'll keep doing that until we get that completely welded in. We'll grind that smooth. And we'll see if this door actually latches on its own. I can't tell you how excited I am. We'll click you back on when we're there. Alright there, guys and gals. After several rounds of tacking and waiting, tacking and waiting, tacking and waiting, let's grind this off. There's some areas here that are just hard to get to with that big grinder. So what I'm going to end up using is my little air belt sander. What that's going to allow me to do is get in these tighter confined areas behind this latch and everything. And you'll be wondering, why don't you just take that out? Well, I don't want to take that out quite yet because I don't have the back completely captured. And the last thing I want to do is lose my backer. Alright, guys and gals, I got impatient, okay? We can finish welding that as soon as we check this. Let's just see how close we are, just for the fun of it. Let's see if this is actually going to work, okay? So what we did today, we got our door jamb, our rocker remade, we got our door striker latch assembly put in. I tell you what, I ain't mad about it. Wow. All right, let me get you out here. All right, guys and gals. Now you can see, we got ourselves a latch door. And a cord trying to trip me for whatever reason. There you go. You seen that flop around? We don't have this attached yet. But now you can see what we got. Now I actually have a shut door where it's going to be located. Now I can come back in here and get this jamb totally tuned in. I come up here, same thing with my jamb. Get that exactly how I want it. I want this car beyond straight. Hence the reason why it's covered in filler. I normally wouldn't do this, okay? The reason I'm doing this is because there's an extreme amount of body mods done to this car from front to back. So for us to get a nice even flow, a nice even consistent surface, this is what we chose to do. So what we're going to do, I think we're going to call it a day on Medusa. So that's going to wrap it up for us today. We're going to go ahead and finish welding this up. We're going to go to the other side and repeat the process there as well. And we'll carry on and keep making progress forward until we get it ready. All right, guys and gals. Hope that helped you guys and gals out. Showed you a little bit of what you might run into with doing these 4-door to 2-door conversions. Don't let it deter you. It's like anything else. A lot of these projects might be overwhelming. Small bites, man. Small bites. You can't eat a 4-course meal in one gulp, can you? I don't think so. All right, guys and gals. You know why we do it. For the love of hot rods and horsepower. Go out there and get yourself a project. Start enjoying it. We'll catch you on the next one.